Hello friends and welcome back to a new episode of the TypeScript Tea Time. I'm your host Mirko and hope you're having an awesome day today. We're going to continue with our newsletter service like MailChimp direction for one single person. So whenever somebody posts a new blog post on our blog, we want to notify our subscribers or email subscribers that there is indeed a new blog post, and so they come in and read the new news. The new news, be aware of that. Not the old news, you should read the new news. And what we're currently working on, so originally we have I think basically three parts of our whole application. One is the subscribe endpoint, one is the unsubscribe endpoint, the other one being the actual workflow that checks whether there is a new blog post, and if so, sends all those emails. And what we did in the first two parts, so subscribe and unsubscribe, is just deploy everything or partially via the AWS console, which is just the UI, which you can see like here, something like this. The other one being, we used a lot of AWS CLI commands. For the latter one, which means the actual workflow that checks whether there is a new blog post and that also says, well, there is a new blog post, please send all these messages, or otherwise, well, don't do anything. That one, because we're using AWS Lambda, and for Lambda I wanted to use TypeScript, I needed some additional setup to get everything compiled, to load everything up into the cloud and deploy. I didn't want to do that manually in particular. I need to do a lot of iterations. So what we did there was use AWS SAM, the serverless application model, which is basically an infrastructure as code tool, fairly lightweight, oriented towards building serverless application, as the name does suggest. But you can pretty much deploy everything you want. Everything that you can deploy with CloudFormation, which is the AWS infrastructure as code service at least. So what we are doing, I think since yesterday, is basically taking the resources that we already have deployed, that we did deploy using the CLI or just the UI, and shifting them over, like importing them into SAM, or at least recreating them in a very, very similar way, maybe under a new name only, but otherwise pretty much identically, with the help of AWS SAM, so that we have everything under control using infrastructure as code, which helps us to make things replicable, and easier to redeploy and, well, change even. Yeah. That's what we were up to. Last time we learned how to import something actually into CloudFormation, but in extension by setting some more flags, kind of. We learned how to import it, in fact, into SAM, like an existing resource that is just living in the cloud, putting it under infrastructure as code control, first using CloudFormation, and after that in extension, kind of under the control even of AWS SAM. Well, SAM, by the way, it puts out a template that can then be interpreted by CloudFormation. So that's very, very nice. The trick that we learned there, so if we go to CloudFormation ever so quickly, CFM. Let's load this up. So CloudFormation, the basic objects are these stacks, what they call it. These are the units of deployment. And we have this upper one, should send newsletter, is the one that we have here. It is controlled via the SAM config. We say here somewhere, stack name should send newsletter. And in here, inside of the CloudFormation, so on the one hand, you have this stack actions, and then you can say import resources into stack, which gives you this kind of wizard to walk you through. What you, however, need is to upload a template file with the new resources, and these resources indeed need a deletion policy, which is basically just a way to say, if I delete this whole CloudFormation stack, what happens to this resource? Should we delete it as well? Should it stay there? Is there any other option? I don't know, actually. We definitely have delete or retain options. So where do we get this template? So one option would be to just go back into the stack, and we see here inside of template, in this tab, we do see a template which is actually the SAM template that we have here locally as well, and that was uploaded to the cloud. So once you run console, come on console, come on shell, yeah, you can do it. Terminal. So the command is SAM build. There we go. Once we run SAM build, this directory here is generated or regenerated. In this case, particularly this build directory, we see things popping up in here, and in here, this template is exactly what we see here, if I'm not mistaken. Pretty much, at least. I see here a key. Do we have this key inside of here? No, we do not have this key. So this is actually even slightly more. And one thought that one could think that when you import, you need to use this one, but that didn't work for us. So what we did, we clicked this view the processed template, and then we get this freaking long JSON. And we copied this JSON, edited the resources, and then used this stack actions import resources wizard with this JSON file, with the edited JSON file. And remember, you have to set a deletion policy for the new property. And then it just worked. Magic! It's a kind of... Now, what we want to do next is, I think we stopped at the point where we did set up our... Oh, I don't want to go here. I want to have the original template, the one that we are actually writing. We did yesterday, so the last thing that we did was duplicate this step function state machine for subscribe workflows. And that looked pretty okay. The thing that we did not set up so far is the corresponding API gateway. I think that's what we're going to do next-ish. The easiest way would be to probably just say something like, so inside of my state machine, so this is the key basically for this template. We specify that it is indeed a step function state machine. We define where does it find the code, how does the workflow actually look like, and some like template literals that get injected into this JSON file. And what I want to do next, actually let me push the name up, is this events thing here. And here we should be able to say something like, well, I want to have it on an API. Then we can say something like type API, I think, if I remember correctly. And here I need to actually look things up, I think. SAM events API. We can, by the way, so the thing that I've shared yesterday after I learned about it in the serverless office hours is this here. Actually not, that's not the exactly right page, but I want to go to patterns in here. So serversland.com. And in here we kind of have pre-made patterns that we can just use. I think that's going to become very, very useful for us. And in here, we supposedly have something like AWS Lambda, HTTP gateway, or HTTP API to Lambda inside of a VPC. How does that one look like? And then we basically have, well, the like a pre-made template, an example of how you can actually do this. And you could, if you wanted to, you could actually use these templates yourself, these complete patterns, and just launch them directly. In this case, it would give you a Lambda apparently that talks to a RDS is the relational database service, so like Postgres, MySQL, whatnot, and then it writes into Amazon Aurora in this case, which is a Amazon version of like the relational databases. How do they do this? So they define an HTTP API, which has only the type, interestingly, and nothing else. And then they reference the ID. That's very nice, very nice. That's pretty much what we need, I think. The unfortunate part in this is I cannot copy. That's unfortunate. Well, going up to, I think, the very, very top one, indeed, I will go to API, and then we call this, well, let's call it HTTP API, in fact, HTTP API. And this is of type AWS. Is it serverless? Yeah, it's serverless. Serverless HTTP API. And that should give us some version of an API. And down here in my state machine, I can now reference the API that we defined up front to deploy new routes to it. Where do we have it? It was there just a minute ago, wasn't it? VPC stuff, events, proxy, type HTTP API, properties. So we have a path, which in our case is /subscribe, because we're building the subscribe endpoint. The method is going to be post. They write it in small capitals, small letters, so I guess that's fine. And then the API ID, which is just a reference to the thing that we've defined up here. And we have to use this identifier here, HTTP API. Which happens to be the same name, just by coincidence. One cool thing, you can also just print the URI. Okay, let me copy it like this. No need to do. Aren't these the same? API gateway endpoint URL for RDS proxy function. These are identical, aren't they? Except for the trailing backslash. Well, okay. Alright, let's take this one. And we want to put you right there. AWS : region. Oh, this is one way to actually put in the region. That's nice. To do use region in all places where we hard coded the region. Nice, I like it. Okay. And looking at this, we might actually simplify a bit more. All right, but let's go one step at a time. So do we need anything else from this? I think we're good. We have a subscribe post HTTP API. And I think that's it. If you remember last time, when we tried to deploy our friends, our step function, we had to create an integration, we had to create the route, we had to create the HTTP API, we had to create an HTTP API deployment. Anything else? We had to set up all the permissions. And if we're lucky, it just happens. Let's see whether it works. I'm very, very curious. First we call validate. That didn't work. Great. Invalid resources exception subscribe SFN event with ID API is invalid. Resource dict has missing or invalid value for key type. Event type is HTTP API. Okay. So you don't work apparently, my friend. Serverless. Step AWS. Step SAM. Step function to vice versa. HTTP API to step function. Or API gateway maybe. API gateway to step function. Where you step functions. This. That's not SAM. Yeah, this has nothing to do with SAM. We might find something up here again. If we go down to step functions right there, and maybe AWS Amazon API gateway. Step function to API gateway, that's the wrong direction. We want HTTP API gateway to step function. Create an API gateway, HTTP API endpoint. Did I share this? Yeah, I did. Okay. Create an API gateway, HTTP API's endpoint that starts a step function synchronous express workflow. In this case, it's express, but that should not change things too much, does it? In fact, we might actually switch to an express workflow at some point, so that we get a proper response. Type express for the step function, a log group, HTTP API. Well, they deploy everything by hand. Oh. Oh. Can we just say API? No. Property API ID not defined for resource of type API. Okay. That's a bummer. So how do they do it? They deploy a role. They deploy the API itself. And how do they deploy the route? Function transform. AWS include. They have another YAML file that defines the API itself. We have to clone this to actually see the magic happening, huh? Is that the simplest way we can do? What do you think? Should we try this way, which should work? Or should we try to figure out a way so that we do not have to write much code? I would like to have a way where we do not write much code, but that would be ideal. So AWS : serverless : state machine. Do we have any kind of events in here? Event source. Specifies the events that trigger the state machine. Events consist of a type and a set of properties that depend on the type. Required? No. This property is unique to AWS SAM and doesn't have an AWS equivalent. Okay, yeah. So in here we see properties and we have a type, which is pretty much what we have as well. Is this an object? Events. Event source. I think yes. An object describing the source of events which trigger the state machine. Each event consists of a type and a set of properties that depend on that type. For more information about the properties of each event source, see the subtopic corresponding to that type. Alright. Properties. We want AP. So let's look at type is API. Type API, very good. And then we could look at API right here. An object describing an API event source. If an API serverless API resource is defined, the path and method values must correspond to an operation in the open API definition of the API. Okay. REST API ID. There we go. And then up here, we apparently don't need HTTP API. We instead take... Oops. Where'd it go? The identifier of a REST API resource, which must contain an operation with a given path and method. Typically, this is a set to reference an AWS serverless API resource that is defined in this template. All right, let's do that. Like so. If you don't define this property, SAM creates a default API resource using a generated OpenAPI document. That resource contains a union of all paths and methods defined by API events in the same template that do not specify REST API ID. So I think we can actually get rid of this if we do not need it. But let's do it anyway, because then I think it becomes easier to print out the route. So that's a nice benefit. So and inside of there, so we have API event, so events, then the name. In our case, it's, where did it go? API. Type is API. Properties is path, which is our subscribe method, and then the request parameters. The request parameters are actually important for us because we have to do some mapping here. Let's check our existing API gateway. In here, the newsletter. Then we go to integrations, which is the way that API gateway connects to like other AWS services. Lambda maybe, step function in our case, it could also be something completely different. And in here we have the subscribe. And then we see the input is actually $request.body. I think that's what we need to provide right there. Probably as a string. Or just to be sure, we take it as a string. Method.request.header.authorization. How do these request parameters work? Oh, nope. Huh. Event. Interestingly, it doesn't specify those request parameters. Anyway, and this needs to be apparently an array. Hope that's the input. I hope that's the input. This parameter does not exist in the documentation. You might be able to go here and see it from here. No, nothing. But if we go to routes, maybe on there we see something. Models. Models? No. Alright, let's try it. We have nothing to lose. That didn't work. So error, invalid resource exception, subscribes to SMN API property, request parameters not defined for resource type API. Invalid resource exception API. Missing required property stage name, in fact. Okay. $default, right? Remember correctly. API go away. Routes, no, here. $default, yeah. Looking at this, we might actually have to deploy this ourselves again. Yep. Meh. If we do not reference it like this, does this work? No. Request parameter is not defined. Alright. I guess we go down to this path then. We deploy an HTTP API? Yeah, we did deploy an HTTP API. So let's clone this friend here. I'm just going to do it like this for now. I'm going to delete it later on. So we're already stepped inside. Let's check what we have here. So this is our OpenA API specification. There we see the request parameters input, state machine, and so on. So let's take this file here, in fact. Just copy this over to here. And then on the template side, probably want to copy. Actually, I want to write this out probably. Right, so much about that one. Remove -rf dot slash. So many objects. Was it serverless patterns? Oh, we copied all of them? Seriously? Okay. rm -rf dot slash serverless patterns. Goodbye, my friend. And clear. Okay, continuing on. So we now need to rewrite this API specification and also copy pretty much this definition for the HTTP API and the HTTP API roles, so that everything works together. Nice. And easy peasy. Okay, let's start with copying this one and then understanding what's actually happening. So, up at the very, very top, I want to define the HTTP API. It is going to be of type AWS Serverless API, if I remember correctly. No, it's going to be HTTP API. Then properties, and then we define a definition body. Definition body. So, and in here, so this is now yet another object, which has a function transform. Oh, where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? There we go. So it includes this API.yaml file apparently. I think that's what it does. Is there a better way to write this? Like if we check the documentation for this, HTTP API. So this creates an API gateway HTTP API, which enables you to create RESTful APIs with lower latency and lower cost than REST APIs. Very nice. We don't have a RESTful API. We have more like, in the terms of remote procedure call style, do something. But that's fine. Our workflow is, or our use case is easy enough that we don't need to have like the real REST thing. Syntax. Def properties definition body and definition URI. I think we can just do this instead of using a definition body. And then we say this is referencing actually just api.yaml. YAML with an A. Yes. Sometimes we write YAML with YML, and sometimes you see it written with YAML. It's super confusing. That is not consistent. Is that it? We can give it a description if we wanted to. API for handling blog email email notification or email newsletter managing. What else do we need? Access log settings, no thank you. Or cause, at some point we probably need this friend here as well. But this is going to be like a to-do for now. Default route settings, definition body, blah 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 blah. Disable execute endpoint, no. We need that. The stage name is not required. The name of the stage, if no name is specified, AWS SAM uses the $default stage. Okay, that's exactly what we want. $default is like the API gateway inbuilt, just the default, but it's using a dollar upfront. No tags, no stage variables, no stage name. Right. I think that's about it. On that front, we have to then, I think, first of all, change the API itself. So we have paths. But this is open API format. That's like an open standard. Can read more about it here. You desire to do so. We are working apparently with 3.01, which is not the latest, but the one before that. But I don't think it has changed too much, because it is just a, assuming they use semantic versioning, it's just a, what is this called, minor version bump. And only one step, so there shouldn't be too much, I don't think. So version, actually this is today, huh? 2022 09 22. We need to provide this? I don't know. Huh. And then it's like 10. Since we're talking UTC, it's then 8 o'clock because I'm in +2. And this is our blog, email, newsletter. So paths. This would be the root. We do not have a root, in fact. We just have subscribe, and it's going to have a post. The responses, the default response for post /. Can we specify this here? That would be amazing. Default. I've never written any of these myself. Most of the time it's just getting generated. So Swagger might be one thing that you're aware of. It's also very much in that direction, and it's also, I think it can use this OpenAPI specification. Swagger being mostly a documentation tool, I think. Some, in particular, if you've ever worked with something like Nest.js, then Swagger often comes together with it. Also, I think in .NET, ASP.NET also comes with Swagger built in. Where you then like have one page specifically only for the documentation, and you can also fiddle around with it from the UI and learn get to know the API without actually having to go into the code, which is very, very nice and very, very good for communication. Right, so let's get into our API YAML. We can go to definition URI here for a second. Oh, intrinsic functionality is supported in external OpenAPI definition files that you reference with definition URI to import an OpenAPI definition into the template. Use the definition body property with the include property. Okay, maybe we have to go back to this weird version here to essentially get this as a result. We will see as soon as we actually deploy this. So what else? What do we have here? Responses. I'll just leave it for now. Then we have an Amazon API gateway integration. Yes, we want to define an integration. Music stuff. Why would you? Let me check something ever so quickly. I think my Twitter notification didn't work. It did work. Why does it show it as errored? Wrong. Well, it did work. Whatever. So inside of here, we want to integration subtype step functions start. In this case, I'm just working with a start execution because we do not have anything. We do not use a state machine currently that is of type express. We use a standard one. And in those cases, you cannot actually wait for the result and then return from the API gateway. Instead, the result will be slightly ugly for the user. So we might actually switch at some point to express, but not now. Switching positions here. So, we just take start execution. That's the API name inside of step functions. Then credentials get attribute from HTTP API role and ARN. Is this actually referencing the stuff from here? Wow, that's interesting. This is probably HTTPI subscribe role. That's what we want to call it in a bit. Type AWS something to do. Then the request parameters. This one we can get from our API gateway, because we have this deployed and we just want to basically create a copy of it, but this time we actually want to have it under infrastructure as code control. So what I can do is I can just go to the already deployed one, go to integrations, subscribe endpoint, post, and inside of here we see the input is request.buddy, and that's what we want, which was already the case in this case, so very nice. Then we have the state machine ARN, which is going to be subscribe SFN, and then we take the ARN from that. I'm not sure why we now use this version. Maybe it doesn't support in our other template. You see this kind of syntax somewhere here, exclamation mark get attribute. This is basically a shortcut for this here, but I'm not sure whether we are actually allowed to use it inside of here, inside of this API documentation, the open API specification. Payload format version is 1.0, yep, and the type is AWS proxy, yep, and the connection type is internet. I'm not sure what this connection type is, to be honest. Create integration. Here we have the API ID, we have the integration type, we have integration subtype is going to be, so this is the one that we actually used, the CLI command that we used to deploy this. And we have API ID, which is implicit because we reference the API, and then from the API we reference the document, the API specification. So we have this one. We did specify the integration proxy down here, AWS proxy. We have the integration subtype, which is this up there. Step function start execution, which you see here. Then we have the credentials ARN, which is this role, credentials get attribute. We take it from this role, the ARN. Then we have the payload format version, which is 1.0. Yep. And we have the request parameters, which on the one hand is the input, $.requestBuddy. And we see this right there as well. It's slightly annoying to read because it's a stringified JSON. And other than that, we see the state machine ARN, which we have right here. So that should be about it. I'm not 100% sure about this connection type though. API gateway, create integration here, then connection type, apparently internet. The type of the network connection to the integration endpoint. Specify internet for connections through the public routable internet, or VPC link for private connections between API gateway and resources in a VPC. Okay, yeah, because we actually expect API requests or HTTP requests from the public internet, from you and me who want to subscribe to the blog. We have to select internet here. All right, very good. Let's save this. So this one should be all right. We can also specify the course policy here. Oh, that's useful. You want to specify post and get. And actually, we don't want to specify allow origins all. Let's let's comment this one out for now. XM is an API gateway import export version 1.0. I guess that's just some internal stuff that we can leave as is. Okay. Okay. So from here, that means we don't actually need the course configuration. It's just inside of the definition. Very nice. Now we have to define our HTTP API subscribe role. So we can go back to our pattern that we have here. It is going to be AWS IAM role double colon for whatever reason. Then we have properties most likely. Yep, properties. No, what are you doing? Just changing my code. So assume role policy. That's the trust policy that we have to define. Assume role policies document. So who can use this role? It's basically the question. In this case, we want to specify API gateway. I think we have this up here. Execution role trust policy, like this. This is pretty much the same, if I'm not mistaken. So we should have something like version 2012 1017. I'm actually going to write it like this, so that's a string statement. And now my VS Code does weird things. This is a YAML array. It has an effect. In this case, it's allow. It has a principal, which, stop it, in itself is an object, or I think it's called a map in YAML, right? Anybody familiar with YAML? To have the right wording. Amazonas.com, and then we have to indent once more. The action is going to be sts colon assume role. STS is like one of the fundamental services. I think it's secure token service, if I remember correctly. It is rare that you actually interact with it, except you want to have access to a specific role. You want to assume a specific role on your local. Other than that, I typically just specify it somewhere, like in these trust policies typically. So that whoever wants to use this role can get a token with the credentials of this role from security token storage. Secure token storage service. Let's double check the name. AWS STS. Security token service. That's what it's called. Right. So is that the same? Allow, principal, service, API gateway, Amazonas, and action STS assume role. Yeah, looks very good. Except that we write it not as array elements, we just write them as strings, which I think should be alright. And now comes the fun part. We have the actual policies. It should be one indentation more. Policies. No, stop it. VS Code is working against me. As a right-handed person, it's very, very hard to not touch the microphone when I'm drinking. So I always have to use my left hand. So, now, policies. We want to have pretty much this, I think. Statement. Then something like this. Yeah, that looks right. Except that the indentation here is wrong. It should be like this. So this one is HTTP or API gateway to step subscribe step function policy. SID can be pretty much anything. Then what do we need? We already have this deployed, so we can just go to API gateway. Well, so I thought. Start execution. Where do we have the actually? Bleh. Where do we have the actual role definition or policy? Step function newsletter. Trust policy. Start execution of newsletter subscribe policy. Let's go into the blog. Create integration. We have this dude here. Check it. Assume role policy. So I am create role. This is the name, very, very long. Assume role policy document. That's again the trust policy that we just written. And then we put a role policy. So this is how you would do it with the AWS CLI. We call it apparently this one, which you don't need. So but yeah, why not? So how do they write it? They call it. Okay, they wrap it slightly more. So they have policy name. Sorry, it's an array again. Policy name, and then we call it like so. Very, very long. We have the policy document. It needs to be indented correctly. And there we have yet another object, and then the statement inside of there. And here we have the version. And I think 20 AWS IAM policy version. I think that's the newest version. Yeah. It's the newest one. We have the following two values, 2012 1017 and 28 1017. And I want to have this as a string. Ah, we had it already up there. Okay, very good to know. Okie dokie. All right. For the resource. For the statement itself. Now this is important. Apparently we can just remove the SID. It's not necessary. We want as an action we need whatever this one is prescribing here. We need to have states : start execution. And we call it on this role. In our case, we can just !get attribute subscribe sfn.arn. Yeah, they do exactly the same here in this pattern example. And that should do the trick. Let's try. Sam validate first of all. No! Invalid, blah blah. Subscribes SFN event with ID API is invalid. Oh, we didn't change the subscribe function. Let me move this one up, in fact. So that we don't have to scroll as much. And also from an order of thinking, subscribing comes first in a sense. So inside of here, these events are actually not there anymore, I think. We have some policies. And that's it. Yeah. That's it. Now is the time. The time has come. It's invalid still. Why? Invalid. Description works only with inline OpenAPI specified in the definitions body property. Okay, so we have to. That's the one thing that they warned us, kind of. We cannot just use definition API, unfortunately. Instead, we have to use this weird pattern to essentially, apparently, inline. That's probably because it's called AWS include this YAML file. And the way we can do this is to use, well, we want to include it into the definitions body with an S? No, definition body. And inside of there, we have fn : transform, which in itself is an object, which has a name. And this is AWS include, and then the parameters for the include function. Parameters, no, location, and then it's just api.yaml, like so. Does that do the trick? Come on, work. No. Invalid values or missing keys for open API or paths in definition body. Invalid values or missing keys. Is our API YAML wrong? That is not the problem, right? No. Okay. I was worried there for a second because we do not have a root we do not have a root path or root route. I was worried that that might be the causing trouble, but it doesn't. API subscribe role. That one's alright. What does it say here? So we can also read. Template provided was invalid. Then error, invalid template exception, invalid OpenAPI document, invalid values or missing keys for OpenAPI or paths in definition. For OpenAPI or paths. Invalid OpenAPI document. Invalid values or missing keys for OpenAPI or paths in definitions body. Oh, okay, so this is printed once more. Yeah, that's exactly the same text. So why are you broken, my friend? Do we need cause? No, that's also not it. In that case, we probably have to look at the... Well, we can start from here. Oh, which we still have open right there. If we go to definitions body, OpenAPI specification that describes your API. If neither definition URI nor definition body are specified, SAM will generate a definition body for you based on your template configuration. So if we would have something like inside of here events and then blah 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 type API, then it would generate the body for us. But we do not do this as of this point. So this property is similar to the body property of an AWS API Gateway REST API resource. If certain properties are provided, content may be inserted or modified into the definition body before being passed to CloudFormation. Properties include auth, binary media types, calls, gateway responsive models, and event sources. API definition. This looks promising. Name of API document defining the API bucket. The name of the AWS, the Amazon S3 bucket where the OpenAPI file is stored. We do not have this. Is that an issue? We do have OpenAPI, we have info, we have paths. Oh, bad. I deleted it again, did I? Yeah, I did. Clone once more. Oh. So let's cd into, I think we did already cd into it. C dot. API YAML process form example. So this seems to be just general text. This is not a strict value, right? No, it doesn't seem to. We have responses. Responses is definitely not good. I think. Sam, validate. I'll be right back in a minute. It was invalid again. Be right back. Back we are. And before we do anything else, let's pour ourselves some tea. I think we need the brain space at this point. Brain space. Room for some creative thought. We don't know how creative this is. We basically just have to find the the right keys that are missing. Either an open API or paths. This is not the problem, right? It would be just ridiculous. Nope. Camera, microphone is working. Okay, good. Response, default response for post. Excellent. Do a quick check here. Test. Yep, okay. Everything's alright. Good. Always a relief when you notice that your setup is actually working. So where's the issue with this? So the only real difference that we have is one being an express workflow, an express state machine, the other being an asynchronous state machine that you just start and then fire and kind of fire and forget. So Where do you find more about the OpenAPI integration? Working with HTTP proxy integrations, AWS servers integrations. Blah, integration type, SQS, AWS proxy, query parameters, request parameters, credentials, ARN. We've got all of that running. So why is it not working? Do we make a typo somewhere? Start execution, step functions minus. Oh, that looks alright. I'm not sure about this responses object here. I also don't know where exactly this comes from. OpenAPI. Can you find more about it right here, maybe? There's an API gateway. Documentation, OpenAPI extensions apparently. This might be useful. So this one specifies details of the backend integration used for this method. This extension is an extended property of the OpenAPI operation object. Also have, very good. The result is an API gateway integration object. So we have some caching stuff, we have a connection, we have a connection type, which we did define. We have credentials. We have content. Never mind. For 1 second, I think I had the idea of what might be the issue, but never mind. What else do we see here? HTTP method, creation subtype, pass-through behavior, payload format, request parameters. We request templates and responses. And then the type. TLS. And the URI. Check the responses object for a second. Find the methods, responses, and specifies parameter mappings or payload mappings from integration responses. Do we need to provide this? It doesn't say it. Great. So integration has an HTTP method. Define it in the path property. Do we have the paths object? No, we don't. To understand how... Oh, I know! Look at this. Here's our integration. We can go to export here on the left. Include extensions. Export it to the YAML. Source is going to be $default. Then we can just download it. Oh, sweet, dude. Isn't that amazing? And now we can just take this one instead. Put it right there. And now we have everything that we need. We need to unsubscribe this one. So this one is duplicated. Now we can just remove all the stuff that we do not need. Apparently we have a course configuration on it. Max age -42. Oh. So other than that, let's look at what we have. We have credentials, we have parameters, we have payload format 1.0, we have type AWS proxy, we have connection type internet. This looks exactly the same. Oh no. It looks so similar, I fear that it won't work. Credentials should be this in our case. Then state machine ARN. We want this here. We want... So we have all of this, I think. We have you, we have you, we have you. We have you, you, and you. We have all of you then. The title is newsletter in this case. And we see now the... that was the... It's the 16th of September. That's alright. Remove all of you. And the unfortunate part is... This looks so similar to what we had before that I fear that it won't work. Can we SAM build this? Oh, dude. Don't tell me we have to SAM build and then SAM validate in this case. No. Alright. Can we SAM deploy it anyway? It would be kind of ridiculous. Error. Try to create change, so like For expression status, we matched expected path failed, status failed, reason transform failed with invalid serverless application specification document. Number of errors found, resource with ID HTTP API is invalid. Unable to set description because it's already defined with an inline open API specification in the definition body property. This description is already here. Seriously, was that our mistake? It was the most confusing. What was the error message that we got? Invalid open API document. So it looks like that it's something about the API document. Invalid values or missing keys for open API or paths in the definition body. What was the actual problem is because we defined description both here and in the in the API YAML file. Oh, that's so ridiculous. Well, so what did we learn? Sometimes it's worth to actually deploy because the error messages get better. That is an interesting learning. A very interesting learning, I gotta admit. I have to say, I absolutely have to say that's a very, very interesting learning to have. So now we should see our API gateway being deployed, a corresponding stage, a corresponding route, a corresponding integration, a role to access HTTP, to access our step function from HTTP gateway. And that's about it. Yeah, we do not see the route and the integration as separate objects apparently. But other than that, it looks pretty good. We see the stage, we see the role, we see the API itself. All of them are going to be added in a couple of seconds, I suppose. More time to drink tea. No, it failed. Unsupported property, assume role. Because it's assume role policy document. Okay. Let's go to the template. Template should have assume role policy document, which makes sense because it's only one. And then, however, in the other one, it's now policies, right? Oh, mouse wheel, please behave. And then we have policies, and there's a policy document with a policy name. Policy name, policy document. Yeah. That looks better. Sam build once more. Did it fail to actually create update the stack? Yeah, okay. Stack has been completely re-rolled, that's good. Now we can deploy once more without the brace. And we just wait for a second here. Looking good. Still, nothing has changed on that part. No, mail form policy document. Service API gateway MS moves owners. Ah. I need to get better at copy pasting. Right. So re-rolling again. Can in the meantime already SAM deploy, SAM build, I think. Because that's local. And then we can SAM deploy once more. Now you work. Come on, you can do it. You can do it. You can do the thing. Do the thing. It's just formatted weirdly now. Yeah, it's still the 3. Why is it? Probably because of this, huh? Oh yeah, we didn't have this second one, so it was like this. Okay, that's why the formatting was off. Come on, this time. I can't do that many typos, can I? Resource creation initiated. I think that's already more than we had last time. Yeah, that's already more than we had last time. So we did make some progress. The role seems to be completed. Now comes the API. This is created. Very good. The stage created. Should send newsletter, and there we go. Well, isn't that something? We have our route right there. If we now take this, I have to SESV2. Do you still exist? You do still exist. Yeah. Let's remove this contact. Delete contact, or is it remove contact? Seems to be a remove contact. Not found. Good. All right. So now we can subscribe this person here. They have a temp mail open for this, and we can try to subscribe them. Oh, don't do that. Down here somewhere I have test.htp, and now we take this subscribe endpoint, this subscribe request. We change the email. We don't really care about the privacy policy accepted at thingy. What we do care, however, is to take the right route, endpoint in fact, like so. Now we can send a request, and then hopefully we should see an execution of our state machine. Subscribe. No executions whatsoever so far. Let's send this post request to our new API /subscribe. Do it. And what we do get is this execution ARN and the start date. That's one of the bad things, and one of the reasons why I want to have to switch to Express workflow, I think. What I do have also in my inbox is a new email. Very nice. That seems to have worked as well. And we should see inside of our state machine, we should see now an execution right there, and it is completely green. Very nice, it worked! Completely managed now. Well, it's now completely? Yeah, I think it's completely managed now by state machines. By Sam, sorry. Good job, Sam. Sam Gardner. M-Wise Gumchi. Very nice. Very cool. Let's stage and actually save this. We do need you. Let's see. I think that we don't need here. Import contact list. No, we don't need you, my friend. Thank you. You've done a great service to us. This one we need, that's the workflow definition. We need the template, of course. And we also need the API definition for our API gateway. And then this is just a quick comment. It's good. Feature. Actually, I will pull this out. Feature. Actually, it's a refactor. Vector. Put API gateway under. Yeah, API gateway under SAM control. It's just a docs to do in blog article number 1. Great. So that worked. From here, it should be fairly easy to actually get our unsubscribe step function under control. That should be easy peasy lemon squeezy. We have everything in place actually. Just need to do it. So for that, I will create a new property inside our object here. We call it unsubscribe SFN or state function. We call it type, or we give it a type of AWS serverless state machine. We give it some properties, and those, no thank you, those properties are going to be the definition URI, which is going to be something like unsubscribe.asl.json, and I think we put it inside of state machines slash. Is that right? Yes, it is. Then we will define in a minute definition substitutions to do SDF. We do not have any kind of events. We do have a name. Let's put the name actually up front. We have a name of unsubscribe. Unsubscribe. It looks weird that there's a BSCR directly consecutively. And that should be about it. And from there, we also need to provide some policies for our step function to work. What kind of step functions we will find out in a bit, I think. To do so, we actually go into our newsletter unsubscribe here. We look at the definition and we copy over the definition. Then we move it inside of state machines. Call it unsubscribe.asl, Amazon state language.json. Put you right there. And inside of here, we see just one task, which is delete contact at this point, and we will add some more, in fact, as time goes by. What we want to change here, however, is this hard-coded email newsletter contact list. I want to inject that from from the SAM template into this ASL. And the way to do this is we use this kind of template strings and then can go inside of here. We can say contact list name is going to be !ref newsletter contact list. Oh, not there. And this !ref will become the contact list name in this case. That's by the definition of the AWS SES contact list. If we go inside of the documentation, we see somewhere the output return values here. And we see if you use it together with ref, ref returns the name of the contact list, which is exactly what we want in this case. From time to time, it would also be nice to have the ARN, but we cannot get access easily to that. All right, so unsubscribe SFN needs to have some policies attached to it. And those policies we have defined in our blog article, if I remember correctly. We go here. Start execution. Trust policy. No, this one is the policy. Here we go. Like so. So policy. In this case, I think I will take policy name, like this format that we had up here. Somewhat nicer. Delete SES delete contact. Done. Version is this. Statement is going to be allow SES : delete contact. And the resource that we are talking to, I will just hard code it for a moment, is going to be this. First of all, I want to get everything under control, and then we can under control of SES of SAM, sorry. The control of SAM of our infrastructure as code. And then we can refactor inside of there, which makes things much easier. That should do the trick. For now. And if we deploy this, so that was actually fairly quick to do. First SAM build, then validate probably also. SAM validate. No, it's invalid. Policies object is invalid. Can we not use this format? Policies. That's not an option, huh? Okay. Oh. Is that right? Let's see. Let's go here again. We look at policies. One or more policies that this state machine's execution role needs. This property accepts the single string or list of strings. The properties can be the name of AWS managed AWS identities and access management policies of IAM policies. AWS SAM policy templates, which is something like down below here we see something like Lambda invoke policy, or one or more inline policy documented, formatted as a map. Oh, where did it go? Yeah. This property is unique to AWS SAM and doesn't have an AWS CloudFormation equivalent. Write either role or policies. I guess we go back to the previous one then, huh? So like Scroll. Something like statement. Can a statement have a version? Like so. And we also give it an SID. SAS delete contact, not contract. SID. It's an A list. Wait. Policies is a list and statement is a list in itself again. Like so. Right? Yep. Not sure whether we can actually provide this version right there. We will see whether it works or not. Apparently it's valid, at least on a format level. That also worked. And if we deploy it, we now get a copy of our unsubscribe step function. And hopefully it just works. If it does work, one thing that I do want to do, hey, that seems to be alright so far. So we create the unsubscribe step function role and the step function in itself. And maybe we also found a way to get rid of some warnings that we got when we've written those inline policies down below for some other functions and resources. We did not provide the version, and something is apparently broken. The following resource failed to create. Syntax errors in policy, malformed policy document. Apparently we need to get rid of this one. This is the right format, right? Policies, statement, SID, effect, action, and resource. Yeah, that looks alright-ish. Okay, do it again. Build. And deploy. I'm currently listening to Final Fantasy VII Bombing Mission. It's just such an amazing track. And currently in the Black Mages version. Black Mages being the band of composer Nobuo Uematsu. Composer Nobuo Uematsu. Man. Composer Nobuo Uematsu is one of the... I sometimes listen to a radio play from some Final Fantasy fans, and they always call him Onomatsu instead of Uematsu. Something worked. I think it worked. I think that worked. We now have to allow unsubscription, like so. What is the default API gateway timeout? Full timeout? 29 seconds. Okay, we can get rid of this, I think. So let's check here. We have the state machine ARN, which we can replace with something like the following: fn : get attribute unsubscribe sfn ARN. So we take basically the unsubscribe sfn.arn, the unique identifier. As input, we take this fun stuff here. We also need a new credentials roles, and we need to actually create this one. Unsubscribe role. It is not defined just yet. So this one is going to be copied. It's starting to grow, our file. We are now at 255 lines. So we call this one unsubscribe role. Yeah. So AWS IAM role properties assume policy rules, and indeed it has to be assumed by API gateway, so that is exactly the same. For the policy, we want to have step function start execution of newsletter unsubscribe. And in that case, we want to take unsubscribe sfn.arn inside our policy itself. Is that the right name? Yeah. Yeah, very good. And I think that's it. Anything else that we get here? Unsubscribe, get responses, default, XAPI integration. So we start an execution of this state machine. We take this role, unsubscribe, and for the input we take this fairly complicated. Well, we take the input query string from the query strings. Very nice. I think that should be about it. Sam, build, my friend. No, YouTube, why do you stop? Oh my goodness. YouTube is not the one that stopped. Am I still online? Whatever reason YouTube stopped. Without an obvious reason. No, apparently it's just empty space. Empty void, silence at the end of it. Alright, that's alright. I can live with that. Build successful, Sam deploy. Go for it. Ooh, sorry about that. Waiting for the change set. With that, we should have our unsubscribe done. So we add a new role. We also modify the API and its corresponding stage, because we do add a new route. Looks good. Looking good. Looking good. Looking good. Let's double check here inside of our APIs. We see this one, which was created today. No, wait. This one is the... This one's the new one. Why is it called Test 2022? Where do I specify this? No, today is September 22. Never mind. Where's our API? Where did it go? Created. None of these have been created today. This one is empty completely. In fact, I will just remove it in that case. Rest in peace, my friend. Where do we have the... It is 4NZZ. That's not it. It's also not this one. Where's our API? Ah, there it is. Why did it not appear a minute ago? And we have the name newsletter twice, apparently. Probably I had to refresh. Okay. Whew. I was scared for a second. So in here we have routes, we have get, unsubscribe, and we have all the integration that we needed. Very nice. So maybe we can unsubscribe our friend Giddy here. Now using this request essentially, but to a different route. So, and let's go to AWS SES v2 and we say this command. So currently Giddy is subscribed, but if we call this request here, we see, okay, well, whatever. And we see it's gone. Doesn't exist. It works. Good job, everybody. Yay. We can also play the fanfare. Dun, 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 dun. Nice. I like it. It's getting there. It's getting there. So we have refactor, API gateway, unsubscribe is now under SAM control. Very good. Very good. What else do we need? I think in fact we can now remove the old API. We don't need it anymore. And I'm going risky here. Come on. Actions. Delete. It is EV. Yeah. Goodbye, my friend. Been of great service to our great cause. And was not talking about cross-origin resource. Sharing. Nice. We did it. We did it indeed. So now, let's see. Let's see. We can... What else is not under our control at this point? What did we miss? Maybe go back to the corresponding blog article. Then try to find out what is still missing. Because we have subscribe, we have unsubscribe, we have our complete original workflow. One thing that I think is still missing is our identity, or SES identity. So that's going to be SES identity type. AWS : SES : identity is probably what we need to do. And I think we need to actually import it like we did before. In this case, I want to actually retain it. And then we have to have properties. And then I don't know what it's actually going to look like. We have a lot of code open, so let's just close all of these. We don't need them anymore. Is that not a thing? Maybe it's called email identities. There we go. Email identity. So this friend here. So these are basically the emails from which we can send emails. This is basically the source that's inside of the email. And this friend here has a couple of things. Let's just go to YAML. So configuration set attributes not required inside of our properties. DKIM, which is a way of for authentication of emails, not required. DKIM sign-in, more DKIM stuff. Email identity, that's probably one thing that we want. We call this one TypeScript ttime@gmail.com. It is just a string. Update requires replacement, okay. Feedback attributes used to enable or disable feedback forwarding for an identity. Not sure. Mail from attributes used to enable or disable the custom mail from domain configuration for an email identity. I don't think we have set up anything of that. Yep. Is that all? Here, by the way, here's one example where we see what kind of stuff we can use it with get attribute. That's very nice to see. So we can use ref on it, exclamation mark ref, or we can use exclamation mark get attribute, and then the name, so something like exclamation mark get attribute ses identity dot DKIM DNS token 1 would be one option. Somewhere, like so, let's say here. But we cannot in this case use .arn. That's not an option, apparently. Okay, let's go back. So this here. We now have to import our friend once more. It's going to be interesting. So for this, I'm actually going to go into CloudFormation. We go into our stack, we go to templates, we look at the process template. I'm going to make a tick there and then scroll down like forever and go down to there. Then we create a new file and save this. Yeah, thank you. And we call it .cfn CloudFormation, and this is email identity, because that's what I actually want to do at this point. And here I want to, let's take our schedule here, for example. We duplicate this dude, we take this name, SES identity. Wait. We need another one. Where's the welcome email template? Welcome. There it is. This one I want. We duplicate this dude. We name this property SES identity, which is exactly the same as we have in our SAM template or YAML. And I also will change this metadata SAM resource ID to match exactly this key here. And then we are going to change the type into whatever it says here. We're going to change properties well, we need a deletion policy. That's very important. Deletion policy is going to be retain in my case. Then we have properties, and inside of there we have here just an email identity. None of this, and this is going to be TypeScript teatime@gmail.com, and I will turn it into a string like so. And I hope that if I do it like this, we can now import this identity into the stack and then back into SAM in like a two-step process. So for that, I go to stack options inside of my CloudFormation UI. There's also a way to do it via the CLI, but it's more complicated. So continue, upload, choose, and we have our email identity CloudFormation JSON like that. So upload it. It did detect that there is something different, which is very good. It did also detect that we have an AWS SCS email identity that it wants to import, and this identity is going to be TypeScript. Let me just copy and paste it. I will definitely make a typo if I don't. This. Next. There are no parameters. And down here, it is already loading something, and I hope it's going to turn green in just a second. Green! Look at it! Very nice. We're like pros by now. Import it. Yes, do it. Import in progress. Status reason, user initiated. And complete it. Sweet. So now we have to save our template. I'm going to call SAM build first, and then I will call SAM deploy and see whether it noticed our email identity. No changes to deploy. Well, okay. Let's, for just a second, we change the deletion policy here to delete. And I do want to change this back to do change back. SAM build. And SAM deploy. This time we hopefully see that exactly this identity has changed. When we deploy it, it is now under SAM control. It is, I think it is already under SAM control. That's my hope, at least. Waiting for change set. Come on, you can do it. It doesn't show anything because it's last time, yesterday we noticed that when you're actually only changing the deletion policy, then it doesn't show that it's actually doing some changes. But if we deploy this, we should see that when we go to template, and as soon as this has actually finished, we refresh you, my friend. We view this one, we should see deletion policy on our email identity is now delete. Sweet. Can you see this? Hope it's not too small. But it did work. We now have control of our email identity. Awesome. By the way, what is this view in Designer? Oh. I kind of remember seeing this at some point. But I totally forgot about it. Would you look at that? This is our infrastructure currently. It is interesting to look at, to say the least. It's just like the complete spaghetti. It's like the complete spaghettis. We have some roles, step functions which can do stuff on Lambda functions. I think it's mostly because I don't know. It's I don't know why it's so spaghetti. I mean, this one you can definitely pull somewhere else and it's less spaghetti. Oh, I can just change it. That's nice. And then it becomes less spaghetti. We have our SES identity, our email template right there, and so on and so on and so on. Sweet. Oh, good to know, good to know. All right. So we've got that one under control. Very nice. Let's change this. Actually, just leave it at delete. I think that's fine. So we can now delete the CloudFormation file. We don't need it anymore. Can also put all of these inside of there. Now we can say refactor. Put actually email identity. SES email identity under SAM control. Very good. This allows for a couple of things, I think. Because if we look at our email workflows here, I think somewhere we just hardcode TypeScript T-time or something. Nope, not there. Did we hardcode it inside of here? There we go. Look at that. And if we now do !ref SES identity, yeah, that should be the same, if I remember correctly. So let's take a double check here at SES email identity. The reference returns the resource name. Is that just the email? It would be nice to have like a way so we can like preview what this resolves to. I think one way to do this is we can have like parameters, email, or identity, and then nope, type string, and it's going to be default !ref SES identity. Did I wrote it in small letters, right? Yeah. Can we now print this? AWS SAM or AWS CloudFormation actually. Preview !ref result. Preview intrinsic function result of value. Can put it as an output, huh? Then we actually have to run it, huh? Would expect. Value and description instead. The email address to send emails, used to send emails from. And maybe that works. We go to build. And maybe we can just go into our SAM file now to see it at the output is now ref. Okay, that didn't work. If we do SAM deploy, it probably tells us that there is nothing to deploy indeed. We can probably just show the SAM show outputs. Describe stacks. Why did we change so much? What did we change? This exclamation mark res. Oh, let's change this one back for a moment. No, don't do it. Sam build, and then Sam deploy again. Deploy. So just making sure that everything is still working before I change anything at this point. It is not changing anything apparently, but it does change the outputs. Then we can get it like this. Is there no simpler way? Well, output key is identity. Stack with ID, my stack. What is our stack called again? Same config. Should send newsletter. Should send newsletter. Which is not the best name. Hey, there we go. TypeScriptTime@gmail.com. That's the output. So we can indeed go in here, change this email source with just exclamation mark ref res identity, and we write this somewhere else. There we go, like there. So anywhere else, TypeScript T-time. Right, now we just have it coded once, and we could make this into a parameter, by the way, if we desire to do so. It's probably not even a bad idea, to be honest. Email identity. Sam build once more, Sam deploy again, Sam do all the stuff. Actually, I want to check one more thing, which is trying to generate ARN, and then we call it description, try to again, whatever. Actually, it's template ARN, email template ARN, and then we take as value exclamation mark sub, then a string, something like this, and then inside of here exclamation mark ref. That probably doesn't work. Exclamation mark ref. Yeah, that doesn't seem to be working. Welcome email template. So. Is that valid? It is apparently valid. And if we deploy, what has actually happened? So we changed a bunch of stuff because we did change this into exclamation mark ref of the email identity, which as a value it still resolves to the same thing, but we still have to do some transformations apparently. I chose no, unfortunately. Do that again. Fortunately, most of the things are actually cached, so they are the upload does not happen again. All that does change is all that does need to be repeated is the calculation of what is actually the change, what are the changes indeed. Oh, that was very, very fast. Base. Trying to gen air and it didn't work. It didn't work. It did remove the exclamation mark, interestingly. Because previously it was exclamation mark ref. So that didn't quite work. But we did get slightly better, because now we can actually, wherever we use US East 1, we can do this. And we have to use exclamation mark, oh no, exclamation mark sub, or substitute I suppose. Exclamation mark sub intrinsic function sub. The intrinsic function sub substitutes variable in an input string with values that you specify. Yeah, okay, very good. So that's one. Then we have all of these friends here, which now become AWS : account ID, was it? Yeah. I want to make you into a proper string. Save. But that's slightly better. We can do the same down here. I just didn't want to do it all at the same time, because it's not a completely trivial operation. AWS : account ID, contact list, email, newsletter. Anywhere else, US East 1, there we have a couple more. AWS : account ID, and go to the very beginning and say exclamation mark sub to all of these. Anywhere else, US East 1, there are a couple more. Wow, we're getting some legwork done here. AWS : region, exclamation mark sub, substitute, and also exclamation substitute these dudes here, account ID. Anything else? AWS, no, US East 1, there's another one. Apparently there are 2 more occasions. Oh. AWS region and AWS account ID. And this one is more complicated. This is indeed what we have here. So we might want to give it a try, but I think we do that in a second attempt to try to replace the URL with sub. Anything else? US East 1. No. And then we have our account is like 7 something something. No, that's it. All right. So Sam build first. Then we do another Sam deploy. I'll be right back. Oh, it didn't work. Why? Template format error, unresolved resource dependencies, AWS : region. That's weird. Because we're doing it right there. Maybe because it's inside of the outputs. But we are using it inside of our inputs. Cloud formation. Get region. Through the parameter reference. AWS : region. Pseudo parameters are parameters that are predefined by AWS Cloud Formation. You don't declare them in your template. Use them the same way as you would a parameter as the argument of a ref function. The following snippet assigns the value of the AWS region pseudo to an output value. Can I only use it in the output? AWS use pseudo parameter in template. Not output. Region. What is problem? So blah 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 parameters are a great way to enable users to specify unique or sensitive values to use in the properties of stack resources. Blah blah, this works fine in the US East region where it represents the AMI that you want. However, if your user tries to build a stack in a different region, they will get the wrong AMI or no AMI at all. AMI IDs are unique to a region. So the same AMI ID in a different region may not represent any AMI or a completely different one. To avoid this problem, you need a way to specify the right AMI ID based on a conditional input. In this case, the region where the stack is created. There are two template features that can help: mapping object and the AWS region pseudoparameter. Pseudoparameter, AWS region pseudoparameter, is a value that CloudFormation resolves at the region where the stack is created. It seems to be alright. Pseudoparameters are resolved by CloudFormation when you create the stack. Mapping enables you to use an input. Resources. They use find the current region inside of this map. Oh. So for the current region, pick the right AMI property. For, let's say we are in US East 1, then it would pick this one, and then we can pick out the correct AMI for us. Which is exactly what we need. Why did it fail though? Template format error. Unresolved resource dependencies : region. In the resources block of the template. Sub. Kind of a bummer. Template format error. Let's copy and paste this into Google. Template validation or in the resource block of the template. There we go. So if you receive these errors. Oh, does it say in the resources block? Yeah. Apparently this does not. This one is, this dude is getting AWS account ID is not defined in this case. CloudFormation pseudo parameters are case sensitive. In your case, your example uses account ID with I and D in capitals, but the correct pseudo parameter is ID. Also, when specifying ARN values, I recommend using the AWS partition pseudo parameter instead of hard coding AWS. That way, The arrow will work in other AWS partitions. China, Gov, Cloud, etc. Oh, so there are others. I didn't even know about that. Gov, Cloud, and China. Interesting. Did I type region wrong in any way? No. That kind of sucks. Let's use. Wait. Was there? Haha. I did. I did indeed write capitals right there. Oh no. Region. Like so. That should help. Validate. They say we can even use AWS partition to get rid of the AWS. I'm not sure whether I want that, to be honest, but it is an option. It seems to have worked ever so slightly better. Oh, do we still have anywhere region in complete capitals? No. Very good. Very good. Then deploy. I also think I now understand how we get this new blog article here. We just reference it by this name, like so. And that also automatically uses the ref internally. But let's do one step at a time. None of these change, but we still deploy. Very nice. Done. Very good. And so what I want to try now is these two. We replace them with my template. New blog article email template. Which, remember, if this resolves with ref, just gives us the template name, which is exactly new blog article. So I'm fairly positive that we can do it like this. And you here as well. Anywhere else? No. We also have one for welcome. There it is. Like so. That was the wrong one. Welcome email template. Yep. Anything else? Welcome. Yep. Exclamation mark ref. Welcome email template. Done. Anywhere else? Welcome. There is another one. Man. Welcome email template. Yep. No typos. Welcome. That's it. Sam build. Sam build. And then Sam deploy. That already helped a lot. Very nice. It's getting there. We still have email newsletter here as a contact list, which we can also replace now. With our contact list name. Where's our contact list? Newsletter contact list. There it is. So wherever we use email newsletter, for example, up here, At least for these two, we can just use this. And up here, we can !ref our email newsletter contact list. And anywhere else, there, we can use this one again. And that's it. So all of these are actually being replaced or updated, sorry, modified. None of these are actually replacements. So it should be very, very quick. Done. Nice. Very good. Very good indeed. Very, very good. Do we have some kind of to-do here? Oops, no. Have to do. This one we did. I think we can stage and we can, for once, factor try SAM template. So don't repeat yourself. That's what dry stands for. And then we can go. There was one more. Right. So try to replace the URL with a substitution. This is going to be interesting. Exclamation mark sub. Want you. And now. Oh boy. HTTPS sounds alright. We take HTTP API. So. We then take $AWS : region, like so. Unsubscribe. There might be another construct that I'm missing, like local variables is what I'm missing at this point. Local variables is what I'm kind of missing. Oh, we might even have like a cyclic dependency now, but I'm not 100% sure. Well, let's continue for now. So also inside of here, we do exclamation mark substitute. We want this one to be the AWS : read in small letters region, and this one to be the missing curly HTTP API, like so. Done. Yeah, and because these are both the same, it would be nice to have like a local variable actually. Maybe there is something. If you know, please let me know. AWS SAM local variable. Oh. There's definitely something inside of Terraform. I only just forgot the name. Locals is what it's called. Yeah, these are basically local variables that you can then use. Locals. Variables. Actually, it's a well. SAM template anatomy. So we have transform, we have globals, we have resources, we have parameters. Description, metadata, parameters, mappings, conditions, resources. What are mappings? The mapping of keys and associated values that you can use to specify conditional parameters values. Ah, that's the lookup that we've seen earlier using find and map, which is not what we need. Conditionals. Not quite, not quite. Maybe it is just the parameters. You can have cheeseburger in like 20 minutes. Although these are input parameters, right? Alright, well, let's leave it at that. Let's try whether we can deploy. Then we check it once more. And if it works, I think we pretty much got everything under SAM control then. We have complete infrastructure as code, and then we can start changing stuff. Maybe in the evening, maybe tomorrow. Oh. No more. Tomorrow's autumn equity. Like the day where the night and when night and day are actually at the like have the same length. Did I say build just now? Yeah, I did. Good. Deploy to the cloud. Ooh, the cloud. A lot of stuff has changed, and in particular also the dependent resources. I hope it works. Do we see the template in here? Yeah, there is the template. Very good. And then, well, let's say yes. And then we can get the template with AWS SES v2 get email template. And we don't want welcome, we want new blog article. As soon as it has deployed. And then we see whether the strings were actually correctly replaced, not reset. That was very, very fast. Very nice. In here we see HTTP. That is correct. Look at it. Amazing. This is our HTTP API ID or something. We have the correct region. Great. It worketh. It did work. Yeah, one thing that I still want is like getting rid of this unsubscribe, but well, can't have anything, everything. Otherwise, we would probably need to use something like Pulumi, where we actually have access to like proper coding constructs, like variables and so on. I don't know how to do local variables inside of SAM, for that matter. Or maybe we can look for local variables inside of CloudFormation. Locals, CloudFormation. Pseudo parameters. CloudFormation best practices. Organize your stacks by life cycle. Cross stack references. To export shared resources. Use IAM to control access. Reuse templates to replicate stacks in multiple environments. Verify quotas, use modules. Do not embed credentials. Use AWS specific parameter types. We could do one more thing. Like having this email hard-coded here. It's fine. It's fine. Do not embed credentials. Use parameter constraints. Use AWS specific parameter types. What is this? I'm 100% sure what this is, but it doesn't. It's not what we need, I don't think. Use latest helper scripts. Validate templates before using them. Huh. 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 They require us to validate stuff? No, push it to production. Test it in production. Helper scripts are updated periodically. Be sure to include the following command in the user property. Oh, there's a helper scripts thingy apparently. CloudFormation init, CloudFormation signal, get metadata, and whoop. Okay. Validate before using. Mesh everything through, or all stack resources through AWS CloudFormation. Yep. Create changes before updating your stacks. Use stack policies, code reviews, and git update EC2 instances regularly. Okay, none of that was useful. So we just drove with it. Metadata. Oh no, that's also something else. All right. Close, 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 close. What did I say we wanted to do now? We wanted to test it. That's it. That's it. That's it. So for that, I will actually take my trusty fake email here, and I say something like, well, first of all, we can just unsubscribe, right? If I open this once more, and I go to this URL, and I just put my email inside of there, I should be able to unsubscribe. So let's go to AWS SES-v2 list contacts. Contact list is email, newsletter. We currently do not have any contacts whatsoever. Did I delete all of them? Did I? Apparently I did. Okay. Well, then we do not start with unsubscribing. We instead start with subscribing. Let's take not giddy button above. And we start with calling our subscribe. So the few things that I want to do. I want to subscribe with 2 emails. I want to then simulate that we actually have a new blog post by just triggering this step function. It would normally be running on a schedule, which I think triggers at 4 o'clock in the morning, so we cannot really do anything about that. And then we double check that we have emails and they look correctly. And then I want to unsubscribe at least one of them. So that should be fairly simple. We just say, do it. Something worked. We say, do the other thing. Something worked. We can say, give me all the contacts. This contacts. And we have now Giddy inside of here. And we also have an above inside of here. Very good. Now, I go inside of step functions. Step functions. Yes, leave. We have our newsletter daily inside of here. We start a new execution. We just started. It doesn't matter what the input is because it doesn't take any input. And then this fetches from dev.io, dev.to, the RSS feed, checks whether there's a new article, and apparently there is a new article called Medusa Hackathon Sign Up. Win merch and prizes up to $1,500 during Hacktoberfest by Nicholas Gellner. That's a very, very German name. We put in this variable has new blog post because it's within the last 24 hours. In fact, it's only 20 minutes old, 10 minutes old. This if statements here, let me zoom in a bit. This is basically an if statement. If we do have a new blog post, we take this left route. If we do not have a new blog post, then there is no article and there's nothing to do. We basically just skip and succeed with our workflow. Otherwise, we take all the contexts, and that seems to have been working too. We chunk the contexts into chunks of like 50s, and then we run over them. Over each chunk, we send email in bulk up to some transformation. We could theoretically put the transformation inside of this Lambda up here, which would probably reduce our usage ever so slightly, but it should be fine. Like, it's slightly more modular this way. Otherwise, this list contexts would depend on the stuff that we want to do afterwards, which is not ideal. And then we send, and this seems to have sent. This is the ID, and this one is also another ID. So we have sent 2 emails. Let's look at the emails that we did receive. First of all, we have a welcome email from earlier. Welcome above. Thanks for subscribing to the newsletter. Very good. Delete. Reloading. And then we see new article, Medusa Hackathon, sign up, win merch, and prizes up to $1,500 during blah, blah, blah. Hi, above. I don't know why there is a space missing, to be honest, but whatever. And then read the article now. We can jump directly to the article, very nice. And we can also unsubscribe. Clicking on this, for whatever reason, it starts a download. And inside of there, we just have this execution ARN and the start date. That's a bit weird. So there's something to be done on that front. What that is. And now we should see that our friend is actually unsubscribed. If we go back to our console, we list all the contacts. Bams. We do not see an above anymore. Awesome, that worked. We have now everything under SAM control, and now we can actually start changing stuff way easier. Way easier. That's going to be fun. So what do we do now? Oh, very good. Effector in email template. What's up? I think. Very good. All right, that's it for today. I thank you so much for joining me here in the TypeScript Tea Time. I'm your host, Mirko. Hope you have had a great time. If you like what you've seen, please feel free to follow. You can also find me on some other socials. Today we infrastructure as codified everything that we deployed earlier and integrated into our SAM, or we at least duplicated the resources where that was more complicated and where it did not cause any trouble. And yeah, that was very, very much fun. A lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining. I hope to see you next time in the TypeScript Tea Time. Probably more tomorrow, I think. I'll do some other stuff. I still have to write the article corresponding to all of this fun stuff here. Hope to see you next time. Goodbye, everybody. Cheers.